Hi and welcome to the Studio Marco Primeau. I received a lot of questions about my last video, round trip delays, over recording.org, and this video is an answer to those questions. A few more tests. It's not going to be a long video, but I thought it would be a nice idea to go further in the tests and show you what kind of delay you can expect when doing round trips over external units and effects. So let's go. So I already made a lot of tests. I will spare you the time for the setup and listening to the recording phase. You can see on the screen that I did color code all the takes, and I named all the tracks to differentiate what the record process was. So the first two, of course, the original is the audio that I took to send out of the audio interface. Mine is the RMA UFX, and the other tracks are all the inputs which I chose to record from. So the first one is the RMA line output going to a line input, and I've recorded the result. So let's zoom in and check the results. So of course we're gonna zoom only those two first tracks. So you can see there's only one sample of difference, and Samplitude did go one sample back from the original. So it did compensate a little bit too much. So you can see here that the transition before the negative and the positive is right here, and here it's one sample after. Okay, so let's listen to both tracks together. Solo both. And if we invert the phase of one of them, so they almost cancel themselves. So it means that the conversion out, so digital to analog, and then going through the wire and back from analog to digital, did not change the sound a lot. If we move one sample, let's see what it could do. We still have the polarity inverted, so let's listen. Yeah, still the cancellation is well done. So we're gonna go for the next recording. The next recording is still to the RMA, but across a preamp. So what I did output from the same line output from the RMA UFX, and then I took this wire and sent it back to a preamp on the front of the unit. So this is the result. Let's analyze again. We're going to zoom in. So we still have the same result. There's one sample of difference, and Samplitude did put one sample back from the original. Okay, so I expect the same result. We're gonna listen to those two tracks anyway, like this. And let's reverse the polarity. Still, the null test shows that it cancels almost completely. So the next step is still from the RMA to the RMA, but instead of going into the preamp of the RMA UFX, I went into an ISA preamp which is transformer based, and then the output of the preamp went to the RMA. So we go digital to analog from the RMA UFX, and then the analog signal goes to a preamp, the Focusrite ISA, and then the output goes back to the RMA in a line in. So let's check the result. Again, same thing. Samplitude did compensate for the delay, and it went one sample back from the original. So here you see the transition from positive to negative, and then here it's one sample back. We're going to test the null. It's going to tell us if the preamp did change the sound a lot or not. So we're going to listen to both of them, original and ISA. And we're going to inverse the polarity. Reverse polarity. So in the next test, what I did is I took the output of the RMA UFX, the line output. I sent it to the line input of the Universal Audio LA610. The output of the 610 did go to the Mytek AD96. It is a digital converter, and the SPDF output of the AD96 went to the input of the RMA, the SPDF input, and let's check the results. Okay, here we have a lot of difference in time. You see this part here equal to this part here. You see the shape here is exactly the same shape here. So there's a lot of sample of difference. If we listen to them right now without inverting the phase or anything, so you see there's some cancellation in the high frequencies and in the low frequencies a bit too. So let's calculate how many samples. If we start here, so there's about 29 sample of difference. If we would align them perfectly, let's just move it like this. Then no cancellation anymore. So that's one way to compensate for the delay, doing it manually, or select the track and here the delay compensation. We said 29, and we can hear the result. Again, no cancellation. In the next test, I took again the line output from the RMA UFX, signed it to the line input of the Universal Audio 4710, and I recorded the result. Let's compare. So you see the shapes. This shape should be lined up with this shape. So that means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sample of difference. So the ADAT has a delay, and the SPDF has a worst delay. Again, I won't do the null test here. I just wanted to show you the delay. and you now know how to compensate it. The last test that I did, there's two tests. I did the LA 610 to the AD 96 and the 4710 via ADAT, but both of them I added some effects on the tracks. So here's what I did. So when I recorded both of those tracks, I activated a lot of plugins, and those are emulations, and usually those emulation plugins takes more CPU, more resources from the computer. So that's why I chose those. I entered multiple version of this EQ, the Pultec emulation, and multiple instance of this compressor, the CLA 76. So usually this could give us a bigger delay, so that's why I did the test. So in this next test, the output of the RMA goes to the line-in of the LA 610, and then it goes to the Mytech AD96, goes in SPDF back to the RMA. This is the result. So you can see the difference. This part here is the equivalent of this part here. So if we calculate the number of samples, there's 32 samples of difference. And in the first test, the same thing without the effects, it was 29 samples. So definitely having a lot of plugins on your tracks will change the delay that your round trip will take. I also did the RMA output to the RMA preamp with effects. So we're going to check this. And again, the result is one sample back from the original. So the last one is, again, the line output of the RMA UFX going to the line input of the Universal Audio 4710. The output of the 4710 in ADAT goes back to the RMA. Let's check the difference. So here you see this should equal to this. So how many samples? 7 samples seems to be equal to the first test. Now, of course, I could put a lot of plugins, but you kind of understand the difference. So it seems that the RMA to RMA round trip always take about the same kind of delay, and the round trip through the ADAT will take a bit longer to process, so there's some delay compensation to do. And if you go through an SPDF input, it's a lot longer. So those delays could be induced by the RMA drivers themselves that needs to calculate if it takes time to record from whatever the source, or it could be in Samplitude itself that it needs to calculate and it does not know what time it's going to take to come back to the unit. But in the end, what you should do is always check by yourself, zoom in on your tracks if you do a round trip, and you can align them manually to be sure there's no phasing and no frequency cancellation. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Click on the bell to get notifications. Put questions and comments below. It's what's drive the channel to go forward. Any questions might become a new video, or I can answer you directly in the comments. And of course, share my videos. It's always a great help.